We're headed back to school in Oklahoma, facing challenges new and old.
Teacher shortage is real.
Our job is to provide a sense of security.
Once again, KOCO is sitting down with Oklahoma superintendents, diving deep on issues like safety, staffing,
our support employees are the backbones of our building,
and the political firestorm surrounding public education in the Sooner State.
Everybody right here educates every kid that walks through the door. I mean, if that's woke, then bring it.
The conversation starts now.
We like to talk a lot about our kids' education here in Oklahoma, but you know, it's not often that we get to dig in on the issues with the people who are in charge of our kids' education. Hi there, I'm Evan Onstadt, and we have with us today superintendents from a diverse mix of school districts. We have OKCPS, we have Edmond, we have Norman, we have Shawnee, we have Yukon, Millwood, and Mid-Del, districts that are large and small, urban and rural, with some strengths and challenges that are unique to each one, but also so many that they share. And we are honored to have them all here with us here today. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. This has kind of been a bit of a tradition the last few years, hasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess it never gets easier. The being on TV part, perhaps, but also the educating part. I do want to start with something that actually went pretty well, or at least maybe some teachers feel that way. There was a big pay raise for teachers that has now gone into effect, between $3,000 and $6,000 a year, depending on experience. I know that hiring and also retaining your staff right now, that is one of the biggest challenges you have as superintendents. So how about Dr. Sean McDaniel with OKCPS? Biggest school district. I'll give you the first shake here, and anybody jump in at any time, by the way. But how is that pay raise impacting your district?
Well, it impacts us in a lot of ways. You know, we don't know a lot of teachers who get in the business to get paid. They get in it because they love kids, they love what they're doing, they love how they're contributing to lives. But make no mistake, it's part of the equation. And so we're grateful to a legislature who saw that as important. And worked it through. A lot of bumps in that road, but they worked it through to the end, and our teachers are the recipients of that. We would agree, I think, that we're not there. We haven't arrived. There's more to do, but we are grateful, and we hear the buzz. Our teachers are grateful as well. So I think there's a ways to go, but we took a big step this last session.
Well, let me get a bit of a progress report, and pardon me using that term right now. As you're going into this new school year, how are we on hiring? Because we do hear a lot about teacher shortages. We hear a lot about special education teacher shortages, bus driver shortages, substitute shortages. Dr. Migliorino from Norman, where are you standing right now as we're heading into the school year?
Teacher shortage is real. I mean, I remember the day in Norman when we had a pool of people for every single position, and currently certified teachers right now, we're looking at about 45 openings for teachers. And
just in Norman?
Just in Norman, you know, and you know, our biggest areas of challenge in hiring is obviously our special ed teachers, but then also our kindergarten to 3, so early childhood has been really a challenge. Now, we have a few days left, a couple of weeks before school starts, and we're encouraged with people continuing to apply and wanting to come back to the state. And I think the pay raise, although, you know, teachers get into it for the love of kids, they have to make a living wage, and I think that's helping us attract more teachers. But yeah, it's a real thing.
Anybody concur on? I'm sure I see a lot of nodding heads right now. I mean, obviously in Edmond, Dr. Grunwald, this is something that affects all districts, does it not?
It does, and you were talking about teachers, but also our support staff, bus drivers, child nutrition, and you know, they didn't see a dedicated raise to them, and so we've, you know, picked that up as a district, and that's been harder to fill some of those positions this year, more so than even our teaching positions.
That's a really good point that a lot of people overlook, is the support that everybody else in the system provides for our kids, for our teachers, for our parents. And even though they did dedicate that large amount, which is phenomenal, the districts on top of that, we feel like we have to provide an equal type of raise for everybody else, because it's such a huge burden on the system. When you don't do that, then you lose bus drivers, like you said, and janitorial help and stuff. So this is a group. is a great group to support the people that work for the kids.
So, Dr. Cimaroth, in Yukon, have you been able to give raises in the time that we saw the teacher raises for some of these support staff?
Right. So what we did is probably like the rest of the group here is we take what our average was, basically our average percentage raise for the certified staff, and we allocate that to the support staff. So that
where do we find the new money when it comes to getting these raises? And teachers get a raise. So as you guys pointed out, there might be grumblings from the support staff. Where do we find that money? Do we have to pull it away from other areas, or how does that work?
Well, some of the increase in just the weighted money that we get for our students helps us to do that. So we have to push that over here, and it really keeps us from hiring a lot of additional staff to make sure the staff that we have is being rewarded for what they've done. And at the same time, we have to try to find those people that we don't have for second grade or special ed or PE or whatever. But it puts a strain on us, but it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the people that work for us.
Sure. And it's interesting because I'm so glad that you brought up support staff like bus drivers, because as parents, and I have a child that's going to get in kindergarten and a child that's going into second grade in Edmond Public Schools, and we think of the teachers first of all, but what's the pain point that we always see on the Facebook groups? It's parents complaining about the bus issue. The bus is late again. It's late again. The kids are sitting outside. And so when it comes to bus drivers, because they're making more money now, right? The offers for bus drivers is a higher paid point than probably at any point in any of your careers. So, for example, in Mid-Del, Dr. Cobb, where are you right now? What's the going rate for a bus driver there?
Our starting wages for a bus driver, I think, are $18.21 an hour. So we raised that significantly over the last several years.
Where was it 5 years ago, would you guess? Not to put you on the spot on that, but I mean...
13, 14, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And so, when the pay raise happened at the time of the teacher walkout in 2018, we had a commensurate raise that was funded by the legislature for our support employees. And so we took a big bump upwards there. I think the lowest classification we have for anybody is about $14.50 an hour. But our bus drivers are about $3 or $4 above that even. So we're trying to get everybody who works in Mid-Del up to a living wage. And when you look at what we've been able to do over the last, 5-6 years with teacher salaries, the legislature has been a big part of that. But like everyone else is saying, our support employees are the backbones of our building. I mean, it's our bus drivers, secretaries, custodians, our cooks in the kitchen, our maintenance workers. There are a lot of people that have very specific skills, and they need to be rewarded for that work as well. And so just trying to get them to stay, with us, especially in our district when we surround Tinker Air Force Base and there are always jobs open on base. We have to be competitive there.
That's interesting, and that's a really good point. Cecilia Robinson Woods, really happy to have you back this year. Superintendent there in Millwood, a small school district here in the OKC Metro. Does it change the equation when you're in a small school district compared to a larger one when it comes to paying your employees?
I was just going to say, if my bus drivers aren't making $18.21 an hour, they are now. Because that's the only way they might be thanking you. But that is the only way we can compete. Yes, we have to make sure that we keep up with what Oklahoma City is doing as well as what Mid-Del is doing in order for us to be able to maintain just the employees that we have. We're very fortunate. People that work in small school districts come to small school districts for a reason. So there is a different level of commitment because you're coming to join a family. But we still owe it to everybody to make sure that they maintain a livable wage as well. So we keep up.
Dr. Aaron Espolt from Shawnee, the new superintendent out there. You guys have a bit of a unique challenge this year because obviously not only are you having to pay the staff, but also many of your staff members and your school district itself is still rebuilding from the tornado that moved through there in April, I believe.
April 19th.
Yeah, and I was out there after that, and I saw the amount of devastation. We all did. We all had our helicopters over it looking at, and you're still rebuilding out there.
Sure.
So that on top of all the challenges that come with retaining your staff, has that been a certain challenge as you step into this role?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, for us, it was a devastating event, not just for the school district, but for the community at large. And so not only did it impact our staff and our school district, the entire community was affected. And so, you know, as we look at ensuring that school is ready to go on August the 10th and making sure that our buildings are safe and secure and our staff have an opportunity to feel back at home, like Cecilia said, you know, we're a rural school, so the situation's a little bit different. You know, we're kind of outside of the Oklahoma City limits, and so when we talk about recruiting staff or being able to pay comparable wages, we talk about how do we grow our own and how do we develop those people locally, how do we pull people from other industries into the school system. You know, we talked about our support staff of bus drivers. You know, we pay for previous experiences, as I'm sure a lot of these guys and ladies do as well, of if they're coming in from driving a delivery truck, how can we get them to drive one of our school buses? And how do we keep them not just driving but the school routes, but pay them for an entire day so that they can earn that wage. And so we have to be very innovative and creative on how we can compete with those salaries, because we're not in the Oklahoma City metro area. Sure. We're off to the side of that a little bit. And as we rebuild from a tornado, you know, we have to say, how can we meet those employees' needs? How can we fill their cup? How can we identify those struggles that they're going through, and how do we give back to them and help retain them and help go through this together with them? Because a lot of our employees weren't only affected at the school, but their homes and their personal lives were affected as well.
Well, I want to ask this next question with the idea of attracting teachers and holding your teachers, retaining the teachers as well. It does seem, and I don't know exactly when this switch happened, and it's not like this has not been there before, but schools have become this political battleground now that maybe is not happening inside the school, but certainly there's a swirling storm that surrounds it with people liking to talk about what happens in the school board meetings. Not that they've always been kumbaya, but I mean, but they are charged now, both at the state level and also when you get to each district. Has that politicized atmosphere that have surrounded teaching now, has that made it more difficult to hold on to your teachers? I'm just going to let anybody jump in on that, if you've seen that, because I know some teachers, and I know of teachers who have stepped away for somewhat these sorts of reasons.
I would say you can't be living anywhere besides under a rock and not see that happening all around you and hear the narrative. I think it's really up to us on how we manage that in our own districts and the encouragement we provide and the guidance that we give. But I know in Oklahoma City, we have had teachers, a number of them, just leave the profession because of what they hear, the narrative they hear, and the pressure they feel. And while it's not a huge number, it does impact people. It impacts them daily, the pressure they feel, the stress they feel, and so it makes our jobs that much more important in how we manage that and the messaging that we provide.
I would say our role as leaders in school districts and leaders of communities are to make sure that we are supporting our people and we're communicating effectively with our community and our parents. And in doing that, I think our job is to provide a sense of security. I kind of look at it kind of like, you know, all of this is going up above the iceberg, but the real work is all underwater. And that's who we are. We're the people who go into the buildings, who touch kids, who touch families. I think the things that we hear about are the most polarizing pieces, and that is probably less than 2% of what really happens in our day-to-day life. And so our jobs are really to turn our backs, let the arrows hit us, and we protect the kids. That's what we do.
Go ahead.
Interject on that as well, and to build on that, the rhetoric that is out there, you know, we talk about teacher pay, right? And now people going into the universities to become a teacher has become more of a challenge, because the conversation is, why would I want to go into a profession where I don't feel supported, whether it's from the state level or a local community, because of that rhetoric. And people live on social media, right? They feel that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's no escaping that. So it is really tough on our teachers. And so, yeah, teachers who have a heart for kids, or people who have a heart for kids who want to be a teacher, have to make a decision. You know, am I willing to take that beating publicly, whether it's at me directly or my profession as a whole, or do I love kids and want to work with kids and work for a school? And that's a decision being made, and I think that's a big part of our institutions, our higher ed institutions, not getting the numbers of people going into the field of education, hence a large number of emergency certified people trying to give it a go.
Sure. You know, the state superintendent is somebody who's one of those polarizing people, you use that word, that has spoken about a woke culture within public education here in Oklahoma. Is there any truth to that? Is that something that
everybody right here educates every kid that walks through the door? That's where we are, and that's what I mean, if that's woke, then bring it. That's fine. We teach state standards. We teach state standards to every kid. We abide by the laws that the legislature passes. So, you know, the public schools that a lot of our legislators went to 20, 30 years ago are still the same schools. We just have a more diverse group coming, and it's our job to welcome every child, period. And we're going to do that. And it's just like they said, you know, we're going to tell the teachers, you teach, you do what you've been educated to do, what you've been hired to do, and we'll take this for you. But that's a loaded question. But I just think we just say we educate every kid. And if that's woke, then that's what we do.
You know, it is interesting. As a parent, as somebody that watches, and you have an idea of what's going on with the school, when there is people that talk and use those types of terms and maybe riles people up and stuff, do you feel, anybody, that the parents who are listening to this are getting a bad idea or the wrong idea of what's actually happening in the schools? I'm sure you have people reaching out to you all the time, parents all the time, Dr. Grunwald, where people will call you or send you an email and you go, I don't even know where this is coming from. Do you get that, or am I off when I bring that up?
There was just recently some survey and research information released that says that parents that are involved in their schools and are connected to their schools trust their schools. The people that are sending these messages often don't even have children in schools, from some survey results. But a message that I sent out to our teachers at the end of the year, and something that I remind myself, is who are you going to let define you? And I am not going to let one person define who I am or who Edmond Public Schools is. As the same as I encouraged our teachers, you set your own definition of who you are, and we don't let someone else define who we are. We know what we do every single day, and those teachers spend hours, they're up there working in their rooms right now, and half of them, the air conditionings aren't even on yet. And they're working to get their rooms ready to welcome, like you said, every child into that building. And they know the value of what they do every day for every student. And we're going to keep doing that despite the noise that's outside of us.
Is there anything better that you can do in your schools and principals and teachers to better communicate with parents? Or is it at some point, and Dr. Cobb, I'll just launch this at you, you know, or is it the noise is going to be the noise? Is there anything that you can improve when it comes to outreach?
Well, I think the second part of what you said is true. The noise is going to be the noise. And I've spent a lot of time trying to push back on false narratives, and there's a value to that, because the teachers want to see us as leaders fighting for them, fighting for their profession, and showing that we believe in them. And maybe you have these people that are state level actors that make them feel unsafe doing what they do, but they need to know that we protect them and that we have their backs. And they may not like every policy or every decision that I make, but they need to at least know that that I'm going to have their backs if the state, you know, pulls a crazy Ivan and comes after them on something, right? At the same time, our parents, you know, the key to engagement with our community is the parents that we have in schools right now. I think that we're all involved in civic organizations in our communities, and the value of that is that you also are reaching people who don't currently have kids in school. And so you might have somebody say, well, I heard that schools are doing X, Y, and Z, and you have to be present to counter that narrative. I don't think countering a false narrative on social media really gets you very far anymore, because there is just so much of it out there. We haven't had a lot of parents coming to us and repeating what they hear at the State Department of Education. And that's been a real blessing for us, I think. And it's not that we're insulated. I think that we just do a really good job of engaging our community and working with our families so that that doesn't happen. They understand that these wild accusations out there aren't what they're seeing in the classrooms.
One last really quick question. Dr. McDaniel, I'm going to direct this to you because Tulsa recently saw its accreditation get downgraded. It's under threat right now for losing more accreditation, for it being downgraded even more. There was a teacher training on racial bias that they said violated the law. Obviously not your district, but it's another very large district here in the state. Are you concerned when you see that the way the accreditations are being handled and what it could mean for your district in the future for whatever reason, or maybe any district?
Well, we're concerned on a couple of different levels. One, we're concerned for Tulsa Public Schools. Dr. Gist is one of us, and so whether it's her or another district, we rally around that, and we are concerned for her. Second level is, we are very introspective. We think about, let's make sure we've got everything in place. Let's make sure we give the proper reminders to staff, so we think about it. But it doesn't consume us. I mean, we've got jobs to do. We believe we're doing the right work for our kids and families. We're taking care of faculty and staff, and we keep our focus on those good things. So while it's buzzing around here, certainly, we don't turn our full attention and look at it at the expense of all the other things that we need to be doing. So yes, concerned for other districts, and yes, concerned that, am I next? But we've got too much work to do to be distracted wholly by that.
Thank you.
I would add to that in regards to the threat of accreditation. This process and the manner in which it's being held is one of the very few processes in the state and probably in the nation where schools don't get due process. And due process is a constitutional right. Someone can launch a claim against a school district, and I believe the last time this happened with Mustang, they had to sign up in the public meeting for 3 minutes to defend themselves for millions of dollars and thousands of children and families. There's something wrong with that. None of us have a problem. None of us are going to sit up here and say we do everything right. We're all human. All of us, I think. Yeah. Sean, maybe not so much, right?
We'll look into it. We'll fact check that after this.
Yeah. But we're human.
Yeah.
And the larger the school district, then the lesser your reach, right? Sean can't be in all 17,000 classrooms. So we have to trust that we're putting out good leadership and we're doing the right thing. But if a teacher gets reported in one of his 70 schools, and we don't even get to investigate the teacher before it gets to the State Department for our accreditation to be affected, there's something wrong with that process. Yeah. We are learning institutions. Everything that we do is about everybody learning. So if we don't get the chance to correct the behavior, lowering our accreditation isn't going to do it, right? We still have the burden of serving communities who have duly elected boards, who have the capacity to remove leadership and do whatever they need to do to fix it. It should not go out of the local arena. Local boards, local superintendents ought to be able to handle their situations in a manner that suits their community. And then if they don't do that, then it's someone else's problem. But the lack of due process is one of the biggest concerns that we collectively have as superintendents, because we're here to fix stuff. That's what we do all day long, is we fix stuff.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.